Well, hi class. Real important week this week as we will learn the importance of speech structure when it comes to public speaking. And more specifically, what we're going to start learning this week is we're going to learn how to construct an outline for a speech. Now, I'm not going to take much time in this instructional video because you have a 35-minute instructional video in this week's module that will cover in detail how to put an outline together for a speech. So just by way of an overview, a couple things that I want you to understand when it comes to creating or constructing an outline for a speech. First, when it comes to public speaking, we will always create an outline for the speech as opposed to writing the speech out in essay or paragraph format. And the reason why we want to focus on using outlines and not essays when it comes to public speaking is because we want a document that we can use to both learn and practice our delivery of the presentation, but many speakers also will rely on notes when they're speaking. And so it's much easier to use something in outline format than in essay format, because if something is written in essay format, it's just a big clump of paragraphs. And so if I momentarily can't think of the next line, when I glance down at that essay, it's much harder to find the specific line, as opposed to an outline where I'm also using labels and formatting to separate and highlight the information. It's much easier to glance down and find that next line in an outline than it is in an essay. So when it comes to public speaking, we're always going to construct outlines, and that outline really serves multiple facets in the sense that we can use that outline to both practice our presentation, and we can also use that outline during the presentation. Again, when everything's spread out, it's easier to glance down, find the next line, look up, and continue on with the speech. Also, what you'll come to understand with the outlines, it really enforces the overall primary structure of a speech. And in any speech, you're going to do three things. You're going to tell the audience what it is you're going to talk about. You're going to then talk about it, and then you'll summarize what you just talked about. So really, when you look at a speech in terms of the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, in the intro, you're going to preview what you're going to talk about. In the body, you're going to talk about it. And in the conclusion, you will review what you just talked about. So with that being said, and this is really key, this next bit of information will literally save you hundreds of hours in the future when it comes to writing a paper or preparing a speech outline. Because of the inherent structure in both a speech and a paper, where you should follow that basic introduction, body, and conclusion, when you sit down to write a paper or construct a speech outline, once you know your topic, and once you know your thesis, that's your overall purpose, that's what you're going to do with the topic. Once you understand that, then get your research. And when it comes time to start writing the paper or constructing the speech outline, always begin with the body first. How many of you have had an experience where it's time to write a paper? So you sit down, you've got all your research ready, you're looking at that blank screen, I'm ready to go. And now you spend the next half hour just staring at that blank screen, hoping that words will magically appear, right? Most of you, I've been in that situation too. Same thing when writing a speech. Well, the reason why that is difficult, if you think of it logically, so what you're trying to do when you're writing that paper, and you're going to begin with the introduction, right? So I'm getting ready to write a paper. Okay, let me come up with a nice way to begin the actual paper. But it's hard to do if you haven't written the body first, because what you're doing in the introduction is you're setting up, you're previewing the information in the body of the speech. But if you don't have the body written, it makes it way harder to write the introduction. That's why so many of us early on in our college careers, when we're sitting down to write a paper, we just stare at that blank screen. because we're trying to write the intro first. We're trying to set up information that we haven't written yet. No wonder it's difficult. So from here on out, you want to save all those hours where you're staring at a blank screen. Once you have your topic, you know your thesis, get your research, write the body of the paper first. Or in this case, construct the body of the outline first. Then, after you've written the body, go back and do your intro and your conclusion. And you'll find that it's way easier, it's more efficient if you write the intro and the conclusion at the same time, because you're basically saying the same thing. The only thing that really changes between the intro and the conclusion are the tenses, right? In the intro, here's what I'm going to talk about. In the conclusion, here's what I just talked about. But you're pretty much going to be referring to the exact same content. So it's just easier to write the intro and the conclusion together after you've written the body of the speech first. At the end of this week, you're going to have a quiz that will quiz you on your understanding of basic speech structure. When you submit your answer to the quiz, make sure that when you submit that answer, you put it in logical order where you start with the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Most of you figure that out on your own, but I get a few students every semester that when they go to answer the quiz on speech structure, they submit it with the body first, the intro, and the conclusion. I don't want that. I want the finished product. At least that tells me, though, that you're listening, you're following instructions. But when you submit that outline for the quiz, intro, body, and conclusion, you're only starting with the body first with that very first draft of the speech. And then immediately after you get that first draft done, right? You've done the body, then the intro, then the conclusion. Now put it in order, do a second draft. And the very next thing you want to do is read that second draft out loud and time it. That's going to tell you where you're at as far as meeting the time allotments for the particular presentation. So when it comes to outlines, we want to make sure that we are constructing a true outline. We're not writing out anything in essay or paragraph format. And we want to make sure that we understand the basic components of an outline in terms of the intro, the body, and the conclusion. Once we have our topic, once we know our thesis, once we get all of our research together, always construct an outline by beginning with the body first, then the introduction, then the conclusion. Real quick, I want to jump on the week 7 module just to quickly show you where everything is so you get the most out of the information this week. And again, once you come to a real understanding of how to put an outline together for a speech, it's going to make public speaking way, way easier. And watch, your confidence is going to be even greater now because you're going to feel way more secure about the information you'll be presenting in the speech. Let's go to the modules real quick. Okay, so here we are on the week 7 module. So an overview on the basic structure of a speech, some specifics on how to prepare that speech outline. I go into even more detail of all the specific components, and then preparing with the body first, then the introduction and the conclusion. We'll also get into how to construct an outline for the critic speech. And then next week, that's going to be your next speech assignment. So you want to make sure you understand the specific format for the critic speech. And then right here, the video on outline construction. I promise you, you just watch this video, you're going to get all the details you will need to be an expert in terms of putting an outline together for a speech. And then at the end of the week, you're going to do a sample outline for the critic speech that will be your answer to the quiz. And then at the last half of the video, I show you exactly what to do to get a perfect 10 on that quiz. All right. Have a good week, kids. Really get this structure down. Once you do that, as I said before, it's going to make public speaking so much easier. And the other cool thing is a lot of this should transfer right into your writing of papers in the future as well. Have a good week.